Jasmine Crockett, I cynically, as someone who wishes the Democratic Party nothing but the worst, I kind of hope that they actually elevate her more and more because she's just so crazy and she says just the darndest things that will only redound against their interests in the mid to long term.
Alex, as a polling guy, I want your thoughts on what her kind of messaging would do for her and what would happen if she gets kind of promoted throughout the Democrat Party.
I totally agree with Josh. I hope very much that Jasmine Crockett goes onto the campaign trail, whether she runs for Senate in Texas or just re-election in her own seat, and she talks to Texas voters about the terribly unfair high cost of her security. I think that will just get a lot of sympathy. I think that every family has their grocery bill, they have their diaper bill, and they have their security bill. And so she should talk about that. I think the voters want to hear about that more than anything else.
Mm-hmm. Look, finally, let's just finish with what's happening in the UK because British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has been forced to address reports that rivals within the Labour Party are conspiring to replace him as leader just 2 weeks before the government budget is announced, which of course could further worsen his already abysmal popularity. Now, several British media outlets have quoted Starmer's allies as saying his position could be in imminent danger. Alex, looking at the polls and looking at Keir Starmer's popularity, it has absolutely plummeted in a really short period of time since July 2024. A YouGov poll said that this month only 17% of people in the UK actually approve of Starmer's performance, just 17%, while 73% disapprove. Also, Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, it just keeps leading in the national polls. What do you make of the reports that Keir Starmer has now been forced to address those reports that there are others conspiring to replace him as leader?
It's hard to think of a worse position that you could be in politically than Keir Starmer right now, and with one of the biggest majorities of any leader in the world. It's pretty incredible. And so I'm surprised that he's lasted this long. I think that there was no world in which he lasted until the next election. I think that was true many, many months ago, if not longer. If they're going to lose, and it looks very much like that will happen, the election's far away. They might as well do something with that majority between now and then. And so if I were a Labour member, then I would want to replace him and come in and at least accomplish something with that agenda. I don't know who's going to replace him, though. And I worry that the person will be quite a bit worse. It's hard to imagine how it could be worse than Keir Starmer, but got some good ones in that Labour Party.
Josh, it's pretty amazing looking at what Donald Trump has been able to do in America compared to Keir Starmer. I mean, since Trump came in, he closed the border, essentially, and he's been deporting millions of illegals. And you look at what's happening in the UK, and they're still in such a bad position with their immigration crisis.
The UK is a total disaster right now. It's an utter shambles. It brings me no pleasure to say that, Gabriella. I'm something of an Anglophile. I lived briefly in the UK. I am a profound admirer of all that the English people have brought to the world when it comes to the common law, when it comes to separation of powers, when it comes to political liberty and justice, more defined than a modern context. They've given, especially the Anglophone world, they've given us all so much. So it's just horrific to see the country in this shape. I have friends in London who I talk to. There's one friend of mine who I talk to on a fairly regular basis. He is on the precipice of leaving because it has just gotten so utterly unbearable at this time in London. The silver lining, Gabriella, as you alluded to, is that it looks like if an election were held tomorrow, that Nigel Farage could actually become the next prime minister of the UK. I had the pleasure of seeing Nigel speak in Washington just a couple of months ago. We used to run Nigel Farage's op-eds regularly in Newsweek. I used to edit his op-eds, so I've been familiar with his work for many years now. In my opinion, he's one of the great unsung conservative heroes, not just in modern British history, but in all of modern European history. He was essentially the guy behind Brexit. What he was able to accomplish there is phenomenal. The fact that he is now having this comeback from his cable news broadcast days to be the new face of the British right is an amazing, amazing story. So if this story has any happy ending whatsoever for the UK, and I really, really hope it does, because again, I'm genuinely an Anglophile, it's not going to come via Keir Starmer. It's not going to come via the Labour Party. It's not going to come via the Tories either, by the way. They have a lot of their own problems as well. It's probably going to have to come from Nigel Farage. So let's see what happens. I'm certainly praying for it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Josh Hammer, Senior Editor at Large at Newsweek, and Alex Tarascio, Cygnal Principal and Pollster. Thank you both so much for joining us.
Thank you.